Hi, this is Rick Anthony, and welcome to the Someone You Should Know podcast, the podcast that spotlights the stars of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So sit back, relax, have a cold one, and get ready to meet someone you should know. My guest this time is a very talented actor and director. You know him from The Ghost of Crenshaw, Sandvine, and also CSI New York, plus a whole bunch of other ones. He's done musicals. He's had several CDs. I'm really excited to have him on. Will you please welcome Jason Paulfield? How you doing, man?
Hey, very good, Rick. Thanks for having me.
Jason was introduced to me by a mutual friend of ours. He actually comes from Jason's hometown of Akron, Ohio, a dear friend of ours, Lino Alessio. And he told me about this arsenal of talent in acting and singing, and I had to have you on the show. He said that he attended a one-man show of you in L.A. He said, quote, unquote, he literally played every character, all different ages, accents, genres, etc. He memorized the entire play, and every character was stellar. He's a true acting talent, and I think you'll enjoy him. And from there, I'd like to say, when did you start your acting career? Was it something in high school, or when did you start becoming an actor?
It was high school. I went to an inner city vocational school for disciplined problem kids after being expelled from a couple of earlier high schools. And I signed up for it through the tech side. I was just going to paint stuff. And then one day the teacher had us in for the spring musicals, and I was being very vocal, making fun of all the kids. And the teacher, who was this gruff Italian woman who ran the performing arts program in this very kind of challenging school, said, you think you're so tough, you want to show me what kind of guts you have, get up there and show me what you got. These kids have guts. You're just a chicken shit sitting in the back. Yeah. And so I went up and mocked my way through an audition. She cast me in the lead, and then I had to pretend not to like it, even though I loved it, because it was not cool to do musical theater in high school, where I was going to high school anyway. So yeah, that was the beginning, and went from there.
You know, it's odd. I had a very similar thing in sixth grade. The special music teacher was working with these 6 girls that were doing some kind of routine. And I'll never forget, Jeff Larson and myself were behind them making fun of them. And she decided to discipline us by making us a part of the whole routine. Because we would be mocking them from behind. And then as the thing progressed a little bit, we would go a little bit further to the sides. And then next thing you know, we'd be in front leading them. And that was my first experience of being on stage. This was back in 6th grade. Her name was Miss Bush. She was our special music teacher. And I thank her today for getting me on that stage, because I have never wanted to get off the stage.
I completely relate. And I have gone back. My teacher was Beverly Smith, and we've maintained a relationship over the years. We're connected on Facebook. And I always tell her, if it wasn't for you, I don't know what direction things might have gone.
It's amazing. Very good. Now let's actually talk about music. When did you get involved with playing a musical instrument?
Initially, when I was in high school, I started playing keyboards and writing songs. But really, my main drive was writing. I liked writing songs, coming up with melodies. I'm a songwriter who leads with the lyrics. So some people come with the music, and I like to come with the lyrics, and then partner with musicians who have that talent.
So you're a Bernie Taupin.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I started writing songs in high school, and it just kind of stuck around, but I didn't really engage in producing music until I met Lino, which was really kind of a happenstance reunion, that he came to see this one-man show in Los Angeles, which was a reunion of sorts. And I was fully just pursuing acting at that point, and I handed him a notebook of poetry that I had. And he said, I've got this studio out in the middle of the desert, because that's the kind of guy Lino is.
Yes, he is. Now it's Oregon.
Yeah. The myth and the magic of the bathrobe.
Yeah.
And so I went out there, and we were just going to, if I remember correctly, we were going to do 2 or 3 tracks. And then we had such a great time. Then we said, let's do a few more, and was going to be an EP. And then we just kept adding tracks. And next thing we knew, we had a full length CD.
Jeez. It's a shame when things like that happen. It's very fortuitous when the magic all comes together. Speaking of music, let's actually feature a song. This is the one that actually Lino sent to me to review. And the first time my wife and I heard it, was like, oh my gosh, I was immediately hooked. It's called What's the Story? It's so very beautifully produced, very rich sounding. So I asked you to ask the question, what's the story on What's the Story?
I originally came up with a lot of this. I delivered the rap portion of this song to my graduating college class at Carnegie Mellon University to inspire the underclassmen pursuing acting. And then later, when I worked with Lino, added the lyrical singing choruses, kind of got incorporated later. And so that's the one, this is the one track that was kind of pieced together from writing that I had from a couple of different chapters of my life.
I really like it too, and I think everyone's going to like it too. Here, we're going to listen to it right now. Here is the song that we've been talking about. What's the Story from today's guest, Jason Paul Field, right here on the Someone You Should Know podcast.
Decided to climb onto the top of the world. His mind was quick, his spirit soared. He spoke of big dreams, but they were all ignored. Now as time pressed on, his life became complex, and that repression evolved into emotional depth. He was misunderstood, sometimes depressed, needing something to release that pounding heart in his chest. Now in a twist of fate and psychological rage, he was magically led to the theatrical stage, and in an instant he kissed it, decided he wanted to live it. Moved to New York City and the chosen was admitted, fitted into a lifestyle where he could learn and fuel the fire of the passion that burned. What's your story, child? Look how hard you've tried. Be true to yourself. Everything will be stay on the ground, and yet others press on with dance and song and speak words of inspiration all day long. Now by and by the time has come to pass. My name is JPF Star and I kick mucho ass with class, determination and drive, and here's some words of help to help you survive. You follow your heart, you play your part, and remember every day is a brand new start. Soul, rhythm and responsibility, we're all in this together, so let's keep the peace. I'm out. What's your story, child? Psychological rage, decided to climb onto the top of the world. Some will get knocked down but won't stay on the ground. Soul, rhythm and responsibility. We're all in this together, so let's keep the peace. We're all in this together, so let's keep the peace. I'm out.
Great song right there from today's guest, Jason Paul Field. That is called What's the story? The question I have for you now is, how do you classify your style of music? You've got some rap, you got a little bit of hip-hop type thing in there. How would you classify it? What's the proper classification of your style of music?
I would have to say Soul Shadows
Okay.
is acoustic rap, acoustic poetry with a influence of, there's some classical influence, some bluegrass influence in a couple of the tracks. Yeah, but I don't know that it fits in a specific, it's rock, it's rap. It's certainly not hip hop, but it does have elements of rap, but we wrapped it up with classical music, with classical influence, with some country bluegrass influence. So yeah, it was a true exploration of figuring out how to convey the ideas of songs and what musical style.
I really liked how you had the rap, of course, in the verses, but then when you went to the chorus, totally different. And it was just nicely done, very, very nicely done.
Played a lot with juxtapositions of incorporate, having the rap come in and then juxtaposing it with the classical or the lyric, more musical singing, which was really fun to explore.
Awesome. Very good. Very good. Now, we mentioned earlier, you're an actor, a filmmaker, photographer, dancer, singer, songwriter, all-purpose creative junkie. What do you do to unwind?
For me, all those things are the relaxation. Truly, for my motor goes. And if I'm not engaged in something creative, I tend to just be really anxious. So for me, the relaxation is the creation. If I'm engaged in creating, then I'm in my flow and I'm feeling nice and calm. And, for me, it's like when people say, oh, do you want to just go like lay out at the beach? For me, I'm like, no, I don't.
I'm kind of the same way.
Lay there and try to be like, what can I do next?
Let me bring a guitar to the beach then. And then my laptop.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that is what I do. Or I bring a notebook and start writing,
I was asking Lino, I said, when you're out fishing out there in Oregon, do you take a notebook? He goes, no, because I'm fly fishing and I need to concentrate. But he says, but it's strange too. I'm kind of that way too. I just retired after being on the radio for over 40 years. And that's what this show is all about. It's now a hobby, but I just still love doing it to stay active and for people to hear my voice. When I signed off, a lot of people are going, man, I'm going to miss hearing your voice. Well, we've got a podcast show.
That's fantastic.
As a matter of fact, the next song on the podcast is Soul Sucker, the backstory on Soul Sucker.
Soul Sucker was something that definitely, the lyrical content of this CD definitely explored a lot of the gray area between the light and the darkness in all of us. And Soul Sucker was very personal to me in that it was an exploration of my own juvenile delinquent youth. But I wrote it when I was in my early 30s. So I had some perspective on that kid, that young juvenile delinquent that was now an adult, but still had some of these struggles with what was right and what was wrong and questioning it and where the doubts were. And the doubts to me were the soul shadows, what's in between the light and the dark and the right and the wrong. And it was very much an exploration of that.
Wonderful. We're going to feature that right now. Here is Jason Paul Field, today's guest on the Somebody You Should Know podcast.
Back in the day, I used to curse my God. I let my demons run wild, do whatever they want. I did drugs, sold drugs with a sex reflex, wreaking enough havoc for this life and the next. A perfect mess of self-protection in the neon light that would blind any kindness from a devil rights. Get him away, son, there was a high price paid. No delay in my display and casting shadows of shame. Inflamed with rage, a rebel army of one. In the service of night, I watched my kingdom come. But in the darkness, and much to my surprise, I couldn't get no sleep when I would close my eyes. These visions, they'd haunt me, these questions, they'd taunt me, shredding and embedding my soul so deep, bringing me to my knees where the demons of dreams creeping in through the cracks of my walls asleep, saying, you know the choice is yours. What you gonna do when the game gets old, player? You know the choice is yours. Where you gonna go with sight, igniting conflicts with the influx of light. Incensed by the fury, I was confused and tried. How do I defang and untangle this mangled maze of lies? I felt the urges, pulls, all the truth demands to fulfill my full potential and the destiny plan. Time to confess, seek forgiveness and then reinvest. Take responsibility for this whole deviant mess. To pass the test, I'd have to recommit, then give it my best and be true to this power with which I have been blessed. Still the future it tempts me, the past won't exempt me. The voices of the night are echoing in my head, saying, you know the choice is yours. What you gonna do when the game gets old, player? You know the choice is yours. Where you gonna go with that eternal soul? From the cradle to the grave. Will you live your life free or be a slave? Ashes to ashes and dust to dust. What kind of stuff are you made of? Ashes to ashes and dust to dust. What kind of stuff are you made of? I paced a dark cage, walking through shadows of doubt. A fiend indeed, desperate to find a way out. I shouted, damn, how do I find myself here? Wrapped up in chains of fear, I got nobody near. I gotta break clear and move beyond the shattered glass. Move in a new direction, take a step and never look back. Stand up, shouted God to the archangel Mike. If you wanna be free, you gotta do what's right. So at night, the dreams you dream, they can be defined. And you can put them into action when you open your eyes. Realizing that I had been hiding behind a disguise that denied me, paralyzed and defied me. I awoke, shut the cloak, I stood up and saw hope. These visions, they changed me, the answers, they saved me. Love, healing wounds that ran so deep. Now I'm a shepherd in the field, calling out to the sheep. Shepherd in the field, calling out to the sheep, saying, you know the choice is yours. What you gonna do when the game gets old, player? You know the choice is yours. Where you gonna go with that eternal soul, suckers? You know the choice is yours. What you gonna do when the game gets old, player? Yeah, I'm talking to you. Where you gonna go with that eternal soul, sucker? Soul sucker. Every breath brings us closer to death. How much time you got? Better open your eyes. Revelations don't lie.
Soul Sucker right there from Jason Paul Field, today's guest on the Someone You Should Know podcast. We've mentioned he, of course, is a musician, and at this point is where we normally do our Tales from the Road, but we're going to do something a little different here. Because you're an actor, I decided, why don't we turn it on its ear a little bit and give it a little twist and call it Tales from the Set. Any interesting stories in your many years of acting that you could share with us this time?
Absolutely. My first guest starring role was on Law and Order Special Victims Unit, and I was cast as the second tier bad guy. I played a rapist, which was great because I got paid well. It's like you don't normally get paid well to be a rapist, but and there was a chase scene, and Michelle Hurd was one of the leads of the cast at that point. Mm-hmm. And we shot it in New York City on the Upper West Side, or Upper East Side, I'm sorry, way up east, like Harlem style. And they had like 5 or 6 blocks taped off to do this foot chase scene between me and Michelle Hurd, where it was her catching this, bad guy. And so it was like 6:30 in the morning, and they come to my trailer and they're like, all right, the director's ready to have you now. And I'm like, all right, great. So I go out and I get in place and I'm lumbering up and stretching, and they're like, okay. And the director comes up, he's like, all right, Jason, so you're going to run down here and give me a couple of looks back, and you're going to hop over this curb and go over this and turn left down this street and run, and this is your van, and you're going to jump in there, and then we're going to blow it up. And I'm like, great. So then the scene starts, and Michelle Hurd's behind me, and they call action, and there's cameras up and people watching from all over, people in their apartment buildings watching down on the street. And I made it about 15 steps, and Michelle Hurd's hand caught me right on the neck. And they were like, cut, back to one. So I realized each take they had to give me a bigger and bigger head start because Michelle Hurd was like a track star in college. She runs like a gazelle, and I'm 5'10", and I thought I was giving it everything I had, and she was catching me no problem.
Jeez.
So it took, and by the 7th or 8th take, my legs are turning to noodles. The camera guys are all laughing at me because they know I'm completely gassed. And so they just had to give me like a really long head start so we could get through the chase scene. And it was very, very humbling, but also funny.
Awesome. Very good. I like that. You got another one?
Well, I'll turn it to theater.
Okay, go ahead.
Because this is the show that Lino Alessio came and saw me in, which was a one-man show that I produced in Los Angeles called 1 Million Butterflies that was written by Steven Belber. And one Sunday matinee, only one person showed up to be in the audience. Mm-hmm. And it was a guy who lived in my building, one of my neighbors.
Oh, jeez.
An older gentleman who came to support. And I was like, well, I've got an audience. I'm one actor on the stage. We have one audience member, and I'm going to do this entire 90-minute long one-man show for him in which I play like 28 different characters. So I start the show. I got about 7-8 minutes into the show, and one of the lights from the grid literally came detached from the flybar and hit the middle of the stage and dropped in the guy's lap.
Oh, jeez.
Who was like sitting in the second row, and it just kind of bounced off the stage and landed in his lap. And we had to stop to obviously see that he was okay, get the light and reset it. And he just said, hey, can you go ahead and start from the beginning? I was really loving it, but I feel like this kind of broke it up. Started from the beginning, went back, we rehung the light, and then went through the whole show from the beginning. I'll never forget it. It was really, really...
Now, if that was sports, he would have got a chance to keep the light.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It ended up in the stands.
Right. Autographed light.
Awesome. That's very good. Very good. Of course, the show must go on whether you're playing to 1 or 100,000 people. Yeah. Links to your website and social media. Where should people go if they would like to find out more information and especially get some of your music?
Jason Paul Fields for social media across the board, Instagram, Facebook. And the music would be on iTunes, Spotify, by searching
the usual platforms then, usual streaming platforms. What we're going to do is we'll go ahead and include all those links in the show notes. So anyone who happens to be in their car right now going, oh, I'm going to forget it. I can't remember what it was. It's down to the show notes. So just look at that when you actually find a convenient place to stop, park, and pull out your credit card and order a couple 100 copies. Besides the songs we're featuring on today's podcast, another CD you've got. Can you tell us about that one? Yeah, that project is interesting because I started a cover band, like a Depeche Mode electronic music cover band when I was 15 or 16 years old with this kid that I met in high school named Monty Workman. And then I got kicked out of that high school. So that pretty much ended the band because we were not seeing each other anymore. And I'll try to bullet point the story. I didn't see Monty again until our 10-year high school reunion. I showed up at that high school reunion, and he had contracted cystic fibrosis. He was on a breathing apparatus, and he basically said, I came to show up to say goodbye to everybody because I'm having a double lung transplant, and I'm probably not going to make it. And so it was this very strange, awkward goodbye. And then when I was living in New York City at the time, I left that and feeling very sad because that was my first big creative moment. I thought I was going to have a band with this guy when we were teenagers. I went back to New York City and another 10 years passed by and I heard that he had passed away. And I wasn't surprised because I had had this moment with him at the reunion where he said he was probably going to. But it turned out that he didn't pass away. I discovered him on Facebook about another 5 years later, and it was like a bad case of telephone. Like somebody heard something wrong, and because people thought it kind of, this rumor got out that he passed away, but he had actually survived.
So we connected on Facebook and said, hey, let's get the band back together. So this CD is actually about 30 years in the making. And we reconstructed a couple of songs from our teenage years that we had written back then. But most of them are new iterations. But it's a completely different genre of music. It's very much in the kind of 80s vein, a lot of electronica but rock influences as well. And we got Lino involved in that project as well.
What's the name? What's the title?
That is called Behind Your Mirror.
Behind Your Mirror, not on a mission from God. It would just I love that. Put the band back
put
together.
A name to that band. Yeah. That's called Fuse. That project is Fuse. Just Fuse, Fuse, and Behind Your Mirror is the name of the CD.
Links in the show notes. I promise you there. Okay. Closing thoughts. Anything else people should know about you, your music, your art, your all the things that you do, from being on stage to being in front of on the big screen, the small screen, all in your ears?
I really think that everything I try to do from the perspective of being an artist is just to explore being human and all that comes with that, whether it's pretty or dark or serene or spiritual, whatever it is. I try to be fearless and just engage it honestly and apply it. And I love that I've been fortunate enough in my life to be able to apply those discoveries in my acting work, in music, in photography, and really just try to incorporate it in everything I do as an artist so that it's genuine, because I think that's what people resonate with when they're hearing an artist, seeing an artist, watching an artist. Is it authentic? Is it true to the person? Because I think we all have that innate sense of when it's a little fake or when it's a little put on. And even if we go, oh, it's nice, but deep inside, we're kind of disconnected from it because the artist isn't being genuine or authentic.
Yeah. Altered reality. Yeah, that's the big thing. Is the person genuine? And that's just it. I think people are a lot smarter than we give them credit for, too, as far as it goes.
Yeah.
Final song we're going to feature is Free for All. Can you do us a favor and tell us about this song?
Free for All was really an exploration of more mature love and more mature relationships. It was leaving behind the past ideas of young love and impetuous love and infatuation, and engaging in something more meaningful and connected beyond the aesthetics and that. And I really wanted to express that we all have the freedom of how we engage in our relationships and how we define love for ourselves and our partners. Some people decide to be conventional and have a conventional marriage, and other people define their love or their relationships in different ways. Right. And I think that's what's beautiful. It's a free for all. Like, we're all have the ability to define our relationships and our love. And that's what I wanted to convey in that track.
Wonderful. We're going to feature that to close the show. I thank you so much for being my guest today, Jason Paul Field. Thanks so much, man. It was a real treat to have you on the show, buddy.
Thanks, Rick, man. I appreciate you having me on.
To assess potential love, let me observe your soul. Are you in tune with the flow, or do you need control? And if you let go, do you leave it all to chance, or do you keep one up your sleeve to see what's in my hand? Do you reserve a secret in your bag of tricks? Abusing trust to cover up injustice you can't fix? Do you give yourself away for the experience? Baby, can you hold me? I'm cold. Would you take care of me when I'm old? See, I don't wanna play the game or keep score. I've already been down that road before. If I want it, I can have it all. I don't have to follow any rules set up by these fools, 'cause baby, love is a free for all. To assess potential love, let me observe your mind. Do you believe in the dream conceived by the divine? And if you have time, do you need to move so fast? Have you found forgiveness for the sins of the past? Are you stressed about protecting what you possess? Giving in to the desire of what comes next? Do you give yourself away 'cause it's what they expect? Baby, can I hold you and keep you warm? Let me be your shelter from the storm. You don't have to play the game or keep score. You don't belong there anymore. together we could rule the sky. Igniting with the sun, we would illuminate the night. And all the moon and stars would shine on our dreams. It's waiting there for you and me. If we want it, we can have it all. We don't have to follow any rules set up by these fools. 'Cause baby, love is a free for all. If we want it, we can have it all. We don't have to follow any rules set up by these fools. 'Cause baby, love is a free for all. Love is a free for all. Love is free for all.
Hi, this is Rick Anthony, thanking you again for listening to this episode of Someone You Should Know. Now, if you're an aspiring musician or an established musician that's looking for a little exposure, I invite you to drop us a line at someoneyoushouldknowpodcast@gmail.com. That's someoneyoushouldknowpodcast@gmail.com. Also, I invite you to tell a friend about the Someone You Should Know podcast. I thank you for tuning in this time, and I invite you to check us out next time on the Someone You Should Know podcast, because you never know who's going to show up. Until next time, remember, God loves you, and so do I.